elephants. The elephants are increasing in size, increasing in hypsodonty. The same thing is happening in the camels, increasing in size and hypsodonty. The same thing is happening in the brontotheres and the rabbits. It's amazing. It's happening across all sorts of different animals at the same time. In fact, the C4 photosynthesis, which is needed in hot, dry environments, is arising at the same time. So the plants and the animals are both changing at the same time with the climate, tracking the climate. And there's reason to believe it's quantized. It's not uniform. There seems to be boom, and then boom. There's a couple of booms where it really diversifies, and those appear to be, data is still sketchy at this point. We're still gathering data, but it appears to be at very precise times. In other words, we have at very set times, all organisms diversify explosively and then diversify explosively again. And these are roughly correlated with weird perturbations in C14 stuff. So there appears to be some global climatic or chemistry changes which are episodic, and they may have something to do with this diversification. So, let's see. Just want to hit this last slide. Whoop, go too fast. And okay. Doesn't want to do it. There we go. This post-flood diversification is extremely rapid. There's also evidence that it's decreasing in rapidity. It moves very fast with big changes at first, and then the changes get smaller and smaller. I didn't point that out on the horse diagram, but the distances between horses at the bottom of the diagram is much bigger than the distances up above. So the changes are huge at first, and then they're smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and in the present we're basically not changing at all. Okay, so there's that pattern going on. It's transbarometric. There's a bunch of things going on in different created kinds all at the same time. So you evolve, you reveal saber-toothed tigers in 4 different groups on 3 different continents at about the same time, which evolution can't explain. I mean, it was mind-boggling. How do you do that? But if God put this information into multiple groups, it can be revealed very quickly and in this passion. And there's another. This is really controversial, and this blows many creationists out of the water too. It's non-adaptive. It appears that this diversification occurs before the organisms get into their environment. As near as we can tell, most of the diversification of organisms going onto the Galapagos occurred before they got to the Galapagos. They didn't evolve into the ecosystem the way the evolutionary scenario goes. The diversity is built in, the diversity is released, and then the organisms go to where they're comfortable. It's a completely different way of looking at the diversification of organisms. It's rapid, it's built in, and the organisms go now to where they feel most comfortable. And it's probably what happened with races of humans as well. And it's possibly those in these bursts. And with these bursts, it's increased variation. There's some clues about what's going on here. We've got possibly episodic. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. Okay, we've got this just really cool evidence that is consistent with the idea that I laid out at the first. That God put the information into the system somehow. It's in there. And I suspect it's in there right now. And that the information on releasing it is also built in. The information that brings it to the point where it's no longer released in the present is also built in to the system. In very much the same way as you were developed from a single cell. You realize that in every one of the cells of your body, the information that every cell needs, you've got a brain cell doing something very different than a bone cell, doing something very different than a cardiac cell, doing something very different than a pancreatic cell. In fact, a whole bunch of them. But that information, a pancreas cell, is doing what it's supposed to do. It's designed to do what it's supposed to do, but that information is also in your big toe cell. But it's turned off, right? It's turned off. The first cell you're developed has all the information, and it turns on certain information necessary to produce other cells, and it turns off information at the right time, and then turns on, turns off, and it's amazing. The process of development of a human body is mind-boggling. The information is all there, and the information on when it's supposed to turn on, when it's supposed to turn off is all there. So now you have all these different cells, as we've got all these different species, and we think there's no way you can get a cancer, you can get a bone cell from a skin cell. And that's true in the present, but it happened in the past, and it was designed into the system, and it's still there. We would suggest the information on how this diversification happened is still there, and that it's the same design that God put into the development of a human being. So the clue as to what's happening on this scale is actually in developmental biology, which is really cool. And we would expect that if the same designer designed both. Well, I could go on for umpteen hours, and I've gone probably way over anyway. But this is you've been introduced to the beginning of an idea, which hopefully in a few years will be developed like the other ones sufficiently that I can say, now here's where we started, this is where we went, and this is where we're going. We still don't quite know the answers on this one. Thank you.